What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic, the fall from grace, how Errol Spence and Keith Thurman went from one time and man down to duck season. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That lucky for riches, huh? That lucky for riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing. We're gonna chop it up today. All right, so who would have thought that Errol Spence Jr., Mr. Man Down, Mr. Strap Season, who would have thought that his reputation would have fallen so far as to be, as for him to be considered a ducker? Okay, I mean, who would have thought that Errol Spence would have to actually show proof that he was injured prior to a fight, so people won't think of him as being a ducker? This is where Errol Spence is right now, that he had to actually show proof of his injury prior to the Manny Pacquiao fight, so people wouldn't believe that he was actually ducking the fight as many people actually believe. A lot of people believe that, not just fans and but people in the boxing community, pundits, former boxers, former Hall of Famer boxers, people out there, thinking that Errol Spence actually ducked Manny Pacquiao. Now, personally, I don't know where to come down on that. I don't really buy it, but it is what it is. That's what people are out there thinking. And so it got to the point where Errol Spence actually had to come out and show his doctor's note, so to speak. Okay, he had to show his doctor's note to say that he wasn't ducking. And this is where Errol Spence is at this point in his career, in terms of his reputation, and we all know that when he first started out, Mr. Man Down, Mr. Strap Season, nobody would have believed that he would have come to this, to where he's been doubted like he is being doubted right now. But before we get into the details, let's get to the receipts, okay? And so we're gonna throw some receipts out there so people can see what we're really talking about. So here it is.
In my book, he's number 2, and he deserves to be number 2, because if there wasn't Keith Thurman, Errol Spence would be number 1. But that's because I hold greater credentials than he does. I've accomplished a little bit more than he has, and I just was in the spotlight before he was. At the end of the day, I'm number 1 for a reason. He's number 2 for a reason. The reason why you guys want to see the fight, there's a good reason, but I'm not going to come off of this big of a layoff, have a tune-up fight, and fight the number 2 fighter in the world. That's just not how it works.
Keith, where does Crawford fit into this?
What? Sorry,
I don't know. I don't even really think...
2A? 2B?
I mean, I don't even think he's even fought any welterweight yet. I mean, to me, I'm sorry to say, but he's barely a champion. You know what I mean? That Australian...
That's the headline.
That Australian, I'd give me one eye, give me one arm, I would have beat that boy.
Doesn't fight anyone. Should Earl give him a shot?
Who? What now?
He says if Crawford doesn't fight anyone, should Earl give him a shot?
Shot or what? I mean, he still got other guys he's gonna fight or whatever. I mean, his fight schedule may be planned out. You know what I'm saying? Like, after this one, we got another big one. We want to get the 3 belts, or whatever the case may be. But hey, listen, man, I think that fight will possibly happen. But I think that if you think about it like this, Errol can fight Keith Thurman, Sean Porter. He can fight Pacquiao. He can fight Danny Garcia. He can fight Ugas. He can fight all these guys. So his legacy has nothing to do with fighting Terrence Crawford.
Sure I met Al Haynes. I met Al Haynes. I know. Personally.
So have I.
What do you say?
Can we get both of them in the ring? Can we get both of them in the ring?
He said, I'm fighting Mikey. Then I might fight Sean Porter, Keith Thurman.
So he didn't mention Terrence, huh?
He didn't.
Okay, there it is. So those are the receipts. Okay. We saw, he lists, he's running off a list of fighters that he's going to fight. We saw Derek James did the same thing. And we also saw Derek James, he said something pretty interesting. He said they're going after the 3 belts. Okay. They want the 3 belts. And this is a key factor, which, I've always said that once Errol Spence get the 3rd belt, he's not gonna go after the 4th belt. He's not gonna go after Crawford's belt. Okay, he's gonna do like Teofimo is doing and claim that he's the undisputed because he has the 3 belts: the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF. He will not go after Crawford's belt, and I've always said that. And Derek James, as we just saw, he just confirmed that. Okay, they're going after the 3 belts, not the 4th belt. They're not gonna go after Crawford's belt. So it is what it is. Now, as we saw there, Derek James also said that his legacy doesn't, really have anything to do with fighting Terence Crawford. You can go and check out that interview. It's on, Black Fight Fan. I forgot what his channel is, but that's you all know who he is. You heard his voice. Yeah, he was doing an interview. So you go and check out the full interview and see what it's all about. But at the end of the day, we heard what Derek James said, and we heard what we heard what Errol Spence said. Okay, they didn't mention Terence Crawford in their plans to, So all this talk about Errol Spence, fighting Crawford or before he moves up or whatever. There's no such plan. As we just saw, he's not going to fight Crawford. He has no plans to fight Crawford, and he has done everything in his power to duck the fight with Crawford, just like Keith Thurman used to duck Errol Spence and also duck Crawford, as we saw in the first video clip, right? So basically, what it comes down to is that while Keith Thurman was a champion, he was one of the most prolific duckers in the welterweight division. He ducked Keith Thurman, he ducked Errol Spence, and he ducked Terence Crawford, as we saw. We saw it come from his own mouth about him ducking Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, okay? And, it's very interesting that Keith Thurman said, oh, yeah, I'm not going to come off a layoff and then fight the number 2 guy in the world. I'm just not going to do that. It's just not going to happen. I'm going to get a tune-up first. Now, back then, when he came out, that layoff was maybe about 18, maybe a less than a 2-year layoff, okay? And he was saying that, and that at that time he was a unified champion, and so he was saying at that time that as a champion now, he is not going to come off a layoff and fight the number 2 guy in the world, who was Errol Spence at the time, supposedly, okay, in the rankings, okay. So that's what he was saying while he had the belt, the unified title. But now, fast forward to now, and we see Keith Thurman. He has no belts, okay, and he's been in a longer layoff than he was back then. This layoff is almost 3 years now. But now, without a belt, he's ready to fight everybody. He's ready to fight Sean Porter. He's ready to fight Terence Crawford. He's ready to fight Errol Spence without a tune-up. He doesn't need a tune-up now. But back then, when he had the title, when he had something to lose, he needed a tune-up. But now, when he has nothing to lose, he has no belts, no nothing, he doesn't need a tune-up, right? You see how that goes? You see how that works? So, this is how, this is, what you call the art of ducking, okay? And eventually all that, comes up, it ends up, it catches up to you eventually. And it caught up to Keith Thurman. And now, it's catching up to Errol Spence, So Errol Spence, who started out, in the welterweight as the next big thing, okay? 3 years ago or 4 years ago, nobody would have ever even thought of questioning Errol Spence's legitimacy as far as whether he wants to fight another fight or not. Everybody just assumed that, back then, he was strap season, he was man down, and anybody that, he was the boogeyman basically of the division, That was before Crawford came to welterweight. Okay. Now, once Crawford came to the welterweight division, guess what happened? All of a sudden, man down disappeared. Strap season went into hiding. Okay, we don't hear that anymore. We don't hear nothing about strap season or man down anymore. Okay, all we hearing now is on the other side of the street, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20. Why is he coming to my fights anyway? I wouldn't go to any of his fights. Why don't I just take the easy route and, KO Sean Porter? This is all we're hearing now from Errol Spence. Nothing but excuses as to why he doesn't want to fight Terence Crawford. Okay, Terence Crawford is not selling. He has to fight somebody first. A whole bunch of, lame excuses. And so after all of these excuses, okay, began piling up, fans, the fans out there are saying, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, this is just ridiculous. What happened to man down? What happened to strap season? And so at this point in his career, Errol Spence's reputation, has taken, some hits. And to the point where now people don't even believe him that he's injured. When he gets injured, people don't believe him. They think he's trying to duck. This is how bad it is, with Errol Spence when it comes to ducking. This is ducking. He's known as a ducker. And the fans know him as being a ducker. Boxing pundits and, our boxers know Errol Spence as being a ducker. So Errol Spence went from strap season and man down to duck season. Okay? And he's basically following in the footsteps, of Keith Thurman, because that's exactly what Keith Thurman did. Keith Thurman became known as a ducker, at the end of his career. Well, his career is supposed to be still going, but we don't know because he hasn't had a fight in almost 3 years now. Okay, so, and at the end of the day, when we look at the career, both of these guys' career basically on the same trajectory. The only thing Errol Spence has really done at welterweight, he has done basically everything that Keith Thurman has done. He just kind of followed in Keith Thurman's footsteps. I mean, except for the win against Kell Brook and Mikey Garcia, the lightweight Mikey Garcia, all his Errol Spence other fights are the same fight that Keith Thurman had. So he hasn't really done anything much more than Keith Thurman besides beating Kell Brook. Okay, so they both fought Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, and the like, and so those are the fighters. Those are the bigger fights in at welterweight. For Keith Thurman that he had in his career, and those are the same fights that are in, Errol Spence's career. Those are the fights that he had as well. So both of these guys really fought the same people, okay, in coming up. And now they're at the point in their careers where we don't know what's going to happen with either guy. Errol Spence had this injury, so we don't know, what's going to happen in terms of his career, if he's going to come back or if he's going to have a long layoff or what's going to happen. But basically, he's injured like how Keith Thurman used to have a lot of issues with injuries. Now we've seen Errol Spence having the same issues with injuries. Okay? So at the end of the day, considering where both of these guys' career are at this point, maybe they should just fight each other. Okay? Because that's what else is there left for them to do, at the end of the day, we don't know if Errol Spence is going to come back anytime soon. He might not come back until in the middle of 2022 or, sometime. He might not come back in 2022 at all. We don't know what this injury is going to do for his career. It's a serious injury if what we are hearing is true. And if that's if indeed the case is that he actually detached his retina, that's a serious injury. And that has retired many of fighters. Okay, that injury has retired many fighters. Hopefully that's not going to be the case with Errol Spence, but again, it is what it is, and just let's say that's a serious injury and it could end, his career. So at this point, we might never even see Errol Spence fight again, and which would be tragic, really, because he missed many opportunities to have one of the best fight of his career in a fight against, and one of the most lucrative fight of his career in a fight against Terence Crawford, a legacy-defining fight. But he ducked that fight his whole, for the past 3 years and never had the fight, always putting it off, claiming that he was going to do it before he move up. Now he might never be able to fight Crawford, which I'm pretty sure he's probably relieved about, not wanting to fight Crawford, because I never believed that Errol Spence ever wanted to fight Crawford in the first place. Okay, so I mean that's just the record speaks for itself, and we have the receipts to prove it. Okay, so at this point, both Errol Spence and Keith Thurman are on the sidelines basically now. We just saw that Ugas had a spectacular win over Manny Pacquiao, a fight that Errol Spence was supposed to have, a fight that Terence Crawford had been chasing for years. Neither of them got the fight, and it was left to Ugas to pull off the victory against Manny Pacquiao, which was a great feather in the cap of Yordanes Ugas. And now he's at the top of the welterweight division, having been one of the only welterweights beside Floyd Mayweather to defeat Manny Pacquiao. An 8-time 8-division champion and legend, living legend of boxing. So Errol Spence never got that fight, and neither did Terence Crawford. Ugas got it. So now the question is, what's going to happen with the career of Errol Spence, and what's going to happen, what's going on with Thurman? I mean, Thurman's career, he's been basically sitting on the sidelines for quite some time now trying to get fights, as we saw. But this is what happened when you duck people in your career, and eventually it catches up to you. And it looked like it's catching up to Errol Spence as well, because all the ducking he's been doing against Crawford now, it looks like he might never get that Crawford fight. Okay, he might not box again. We don't know. Like I said, hopefully that's not the case, because I would love to see the Crawford Errol Spence fight, even though I don't think it's going to happen. Hope springs eternal. But I mean, it is what it is. I just think that he's going to keep ducking. But if he's injured and never comes back to boxing, we ain't never going to get a fight. So hopefully he comes back. Okay, and we might be able to see that fight. We don't know. But this is where it's at right now. So Errol Spence and Keith Thurman, they started out, they had a promising beginning in their career, but at the end they end up being, known as duckers at the end. Both of them, basically their career took the same trajectory, same path. Both, started out good, ended up being, ended up bad, basically. We see that Crawford, on the contrary, his career is continuing to move forward in the sense that he might be fighting Sean Porter soon. We don't know if that fight is going to happen, if Sean Porter actually going to take that fight, but we're going to see the first bid on September 2nd, and we'll know what happens after that. But again, when you compare these guys, Keith Thurman, Terence Crawford, and Errol Spence, we see that Crawford has moved up like 3 different weight divisions. He was undisputed 140 pounds. Now he's moved up to welterweight division. He's become the boogeyman of the welterweight division. Everybody, basically avoiding him. Both Spence and Thurman avoided him, and Spence continued to avoid him. So does Thurman. And now, if Errol Spence is not going to come back, then that's going to leave the welterweight division to Terence Crawford, okay, and Yordanes Ugas, okay. Those guys going to be at the top of the heap right now, okay. So what's going to happen with those belts that Errol Spence has if he doesn't come back? I guess eventually they're going to have to strip him, or maybe he's going to vacate the belt if he doesn't come back in a quick enough, or if he doesn't come back at all, and then we're gonna have fights for those belts. Okay, Keith Thurman could possibly get a shot at Ugas. We don't know, but from what we're hearing, Manny Pacquiao and Ugas are gonna go for the rematch. Manny Pacquiao's out there talking slick, You know, that was one of the easiest fights in his career. I don't know how that's possible when he got beat up so much by Ugas to the point where his wife had to feed him. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but you know, egos are egos, and you know, boxers have egos. So anyway, the bottom line is that they're supposed to do a rematch. I don't really think that the fight is going to be any different in the rematch. I think, if anything, it's probably going to be worse for Manny Pacquiao. But we'll see how it plays out. We can't, you know, count Pacquiao out. You know, he's a living legend. So let's see what's going to happen in the rematch. I don't think it's going to be anything different. So if that rematch happens and Ugas wins again, then that, you know, by then hopefully Errol Spence would have recovered from his injury, and maybe we might see a fight between Errol Spence and Ugas. You know, although that fight was supposed to happen before, but you know, Errol Spence took the Manny Pacquiao fight instead and ended up losing that Manny Pacquiao fight, and Ugas ended up getting the fight, and so the Ugas Spence fight never happened. Okay, but it might happen in the future. We'll see. It depends on what happened with Spence and if he's going to come back or if he's not going to come back. But at the end of the day, you know, it's a sad situation, really. It's sad to see, you know, Errol Spence, you know, career. Hopefully his career don't end at this point, because if it did, at this point, if Errol Spence's career was to end at this point, he hasn't done anything right now that we can say, you know, he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. You know, beating Kell Brook, Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, and Danny Garcia. I don't think would put him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he hasn't moved up or moved. You know, he hasn't did any weight. You know, he was never. He was never undisputed, so he hasn't really accomplished that much in boxing. You know, considering you know that he's been fighting for quite some time. You know, but I don't think he has done anything that we can say is Hall of Fame worthy. Okay, so I don't think he's going to be in the Hall of Fame if his career was to end at this point. Despite what I hear some people out there saying, I hear people out there talking about Errol Spence is going to be up there with people like Lionel Messi, and I'm like, what? What is this guy talking about, Lionel Messi? I mean, what does Errol Spence accomplish in boxing that's close to what Messi has accomplished in soccer? I mean, it just goes to show you, you know, how far people take fanboys, and they take it to the ridiculous extremes. Okay, but it is what it is. But at the end of the day, you know, let's see what's going to happen. Supposedly, Sean Porter is supposed to fight Crawford. Let's hope that fight comes off, and then we'll see what happens with Crawford after that. If he's going to fight Ugas next, or if Spence is going to come back, what's going to happen in the welterweight division. At this point, with the upset win over Manny Pacquiao by Ugas and the injury to Spence's eye from his sparring session, you know, the welterweight division is in an uproar right now. A lot of things, you know, are going on, and you know, anything could happen. So let's see what's going to happen for the future in terms of Errol Spence. You know, Keith Thurman. Maybe Keith Thurman might get a shot, like I said, against Ugas. We don't know. It seems like that's where it's headed eventually. Or he might fight someone else. Errol Spence, we don't know if he's going to come back. Hopefully he does. As we know, Crawford is continuing on the road to greatness. You know, he's going to fight Keith Thurman. Sean Porter next. Maybe he might fight Keith Thurman sometime in the future. We don't know. But let's see what happens. That's all I have for right now. This is TBE Boxing. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Like I said, go to tbeboxing.com. Check out the latest articles and you know about boxing, and subscribe to the channel. That's all I have for right now. This is TBE Boxing. I'm out.